original.
Hello, and welcome to Web Crawlers, the podcast where we do a deep dive into some of our favorite mysteries. Each week, we will introduce our topic, lay out our research and findings, reveal some conspiracy theories, and conclude with our own hypothesis. I am Allie Siegel.
I'm Melissa Stettin.
And I'm producer Maria.
Melissa, we have some pretty exciting patrons this week. Who do we have?
We have Mr. Paul F. Tompkins.
Whoa.
Welcome.
Wow.
Big get. That's a big, huge get.
That's big time, baby.
Honestly, it is. And if you're a patron, also, like, you're all going to be in the same community. That's pretty huge.
We've got Monica, Kylie Jenner,
Wow.
Katrina, Hurricane Katrina.
Wow.
And then Ababamus, which I believe is anonymous, spelled with B's. Ababamus. And Amy. The
Amy
ghost
Schumer,
of
wow.
Amy Winehouse and Amy Schumer.
Yeah, very cool. Anyways, I am super excited for today's episode, and we have a great guest on. In honor of Women's History Month, I am going to focus our episode today on female serial killers.
Wow.
Yes.
Not often talked enough about. So, Rudyard Kipling's poem, The Female of the Species, concludes that the female of the species is more deadly than the male. You see this in like animals all the time. And like, you know, black widow spiders and what are those animals that rip off the heads after they
Praying
mate?
mantises.
Praying mantis.
Praying mantises. It's true in the animal kingdom. And even, what is it? Female lions, I think, are the ones that hunt.
Oh.
What do the man do?
Sit around watching TV.
They be shopping. Men be shopping.
Internet shopping.
Yeah, so it's true in the animal kingdom, and it is true for us women as well, also animals. To honor women, we will be discussing my favorite type of girl boss, the female serial killer.
Yes, queen.
Distinctly different from the male serial killer. Here is a rundown on women who kill. So we'll just do a general explanation. We will have our guest, and then I'll get into a few who are pretty interesting and distinctive. Female and male serial killers are very distinctive in how they kill, and there's a real difference between them. Women tend to kill for gain, also for money.
Oh.
So the real instinct that women kill is always for like a monetary or financial gain.
Mm-hmm.
And they also usually kill people who they have a personal relationship with. Husbands, friends, families, and unfortunately, a lot of the time it's children.
Yes.
Or it's people who they're caring for.
You're
We'll see in a
right.
lot of the people we hear about today that a lot of these people are like work in orphanages or they're nurses and they'll kill the people who they're caring for. Men don't really need a reason to kill. It's kind of like instinctual, psychological, and there's also a sexual component. Like there's a weird sexual release when it comes to men who kill. Although we will talk about one woman who does have a sexual component in her killing.
There's only one. One and that's it.
Well, honestly, there might only be one. She nasty.
She nasty.
So anyways, this is from Discover magazine, and it's analytical scientific article about female serial killers. According to data, it says, from Radford University and Florida Gulf Coast University. Don't know how reputable Florida Gulf Coast University is, but we'll just go with it. Yeah, you know, that acclaimed university. Female serial killers account for just 11% of cases in the past century.
Whoa.
In more recent decades, it's been 5 to 7%.
Oh.
Their prevalence is also far more stable, with only a few dozen operating in any given decade.
Wow.
Even as numbers for male serial killers soared above 700 people internationally in the 1980s.
Dang.
So there were 700 male serial killers in the 1980s, allegedly.
Hot time for crime.
honestly. Female serial killers are often described as quiet killers. They kill in a very different way from male serial killers. Male serial killers torture, they stab, they butcher their victims. They like leave body parts all over the place. They rape. Female serial killers prefer poison.
Yeah.
In 50% of all cases.
Wow.
Dang.
They also smother.
Oh,
So like they
the
do
pillow.
the old pillow trick. They also tend to kill ways that are way harder to detect. They're way smarter killers.
Yeah.
They also tend to kill at home or at work, drawing less attention than the random far-flung sprees common among men. So we've talked about serial killers before, and like our guest later, Tori, a great author, talks about this as well, that a lot of male serial killers killed hitchhikers or along highways, or they would leave women in like alleyways and things like that. Women are killing in hospitals, orphanages, people's houses, hotels, and things like that. They're not just like leaving bodies all around town. In a 2013 paper, this article says, analyzing the characteristics of female serial killers, sociologist Amanda Farrell wrote that they kill, on average, over longer stretches of time than their male counterparts. As opposed to killing several people at once, they'll kind of stretch out their kills. They'll poison a victim a little bit over a long time, which we'll get into as well, so that they die like a very slow and painful death.
Cool.
Right? Or a lot of these people are nurses and they call them like angels of death. So they'll give their patients like a little bit of like morphine or like poison over long periods of time until they eventually like die or overdose. Like weird, scary stuff. Like they enjoy watching them die slowly. It's really creepy.
Women are crazy.
Like women are crazy. Honestly, women are insane. It's true. It's true what they say about us. We're nuts.
We're crazy.
Because a weird psychological component about female serial killers is they also like taking care of their victims as they're dying. They'll be like poisoning their husband and also being like, oh, honey, are you okay? Like, let me fix it. Like, I'm the only one who can help you. We talked about a little bit leading into our interview with Tori, Munchausen's by proxy. What was it? Dee Dee Blanchard and Gypsy. She was like telling her daughter that she had all these medical issues and was like giving her all these medications that were making her sick and keeping her in a wheelchair, but also taking care of her at the same time. Like there's a psychological component of like women needing to be caregivers, which is part of this serial killer thing.
Yeah.
Also, if we're going to get into it from an evolutionary aspect, there's something about like hunting and gathering. So this article continues that men are more likely to venture out and stalk or hunt their victims, studying their routines, social networks, like preying on them, while women, on the other hand, tend to gather those near them. So that's why they're kind of collecting victims who are close to them. According to Farrell, 80% of female serial killers know their victims, and they often live or work with them.
Interesting.
Scary. Your friend will probably... So if I was a female serial killer, I'd probably be killing one of you.
Damn.
I know.
Maria.
Believe me, I'm
Sorry.
prepared for that day.
Or if Maria was a serial killer, Craig's cookies were probably poisoned. And she's going to continue to send... And then the C's candy she sent me for my birthday probably poisoned. The Portos probably poisoned. And then she's killing me slowly over a while. Given these stats, I was like, okay, there's probably like 10 female serial killers or something. It turns out there's like a bajillion, and they've also killed tons of people.
Damn.
Tons over time, and they've done it in really gruesome, weird ass ways. Women are creative. So I'll just go through a list. I'm not going to get into the details of them. There's this woman, Leonarda Cianciulli. We might have talked about her a little bit. She killed 3 people, and she made soap and cakes out of the bodies of her victims.
Cake?
Whoa.
What do you mean? What do you mean cake? Body cake?
Body cake.
No, like a meat cake?
No, I think she would cremate them and then turn their cremation, like turn their, well, I think first she would turn their fat and their stuff into soap, and then she would cremate them and turn that, put it like, use it as flour for their cakes.
Oh,
Ew.
Jesus.
What was her deal? Why?
Creative.
She murdered 3 women. Wow, so she murdered women. Wow, with between 1939 and
wow.
1940.
Oh, that's interesting.
A serial killer and a cannibal. Oh my God, you know I love cannibals.
Did you know that Chuli had 17 pregnancies during her marriage and lost 3 of the children to miscarriages? 10 more died in their youth. Wow.
Oh, she killed him.
No, it says she was highly protective of the surviving children.
Oh, weird.
It said her fears were fueled by a warning she had received sometime earlier from a fortune teller who said that she would marry and have children, but that all of the children would die young.
What?
Oh, listen to this. So the Romani who she visited gave her a palm reading and told her, in your right hand, I see prison. In your left, a criminal asylum.
Oh my
Whoa.
God.
And she probably ended up going to both. She tried to commit suicide several times as a young girl.
Her victims were middle-aged women, all neighbors.
She was served 30 years in prison and 3 years in a criminal asylum. Wow.
Damn.
Wow. A number of artifacts from the case, including the pot in which the victims were boiled,
Oh my God.
are on display.
Why?
On display.
They're on display at the Criminological Museum in Rome.
Ooh.
According to Cianciulli's statement, she said she's talking about Virginia Cacioppo, who she killed. She ended up in a pot like the other two.
Virginia Cacioppo.
Cacioppo.
Yeah.
She ended up in a pot like the other two. Her flesh was fat and white. When it had melted, I added a bottle of cologne, and after a long time on the boil, I was able to make some most acceptable creamy soap. I gave bars to neighbors and acquaintances. The cakes, too, were better. That woman was really sweet.
Oh.
That's so disgusting.
Oh, Leonardo.
Leonardo.
To be fair, all these last names sound like meals. Like, I could understand why she got inspiration for these to be like.
This is her
recipes.
talking about another one she cooked. I threw the pieces. This is about Faustina Seti. I threw the pieces into a pot, added 7
Faustina Seti.
kilos of caustic soda, which I had bought to make soap, and stirred the mixture until the pieces dissolved into a thick, dark mush that I poured into several buckets and emptied into a nearby septic tank. As for the blood in the basin, I waited until it coagulated, dried it in the oven, ground it, mixed it with flour, sugar, chocolate milk, and eggs, as well as a bit of margarine. Kneading all the ingredients together, I made lots of crunchy tea cakes and served them to the ladies who came to visit, though Giuseppe and I also ate them.
Oh
my God.
Oh, that is dark. Oh,
She's cool.
Girl,
that is nasty.
girl.
That is nasty.
There's a play about her, a darkly comic play called Love and Magic in Mama's Kitchen.
Oh my.
That was on Broadway.
On Broadway?
Wow, this woman, yeah.
This girl is crazy.
The blood coagulated.
You know, there is blood pudding. There's like, usually it's
Right.
animal blood. But
That's right.
on the show Hannibal, he uses human blood. So I mean, it's not unheard of to cook with blood. I wonder how many cannibals actually make desserts out of blood.
Ew.
Interesting. Okay, well, there's going to be some more that pique your interest.
Okay.
Oh boy.
There's Carla Homolka. She was a rapist and killer, but she worked with her husband. They killed 3 people. I always wonder when they're working with their husband if it's like a little bit of a Stockholm syndrome thing.
Yeah, I wonder.
And what the pressure is. So sometimes I write that off, but maybe that's just me being, I don't know.
No, that's kind of what I thought.
Yeah. There's Kristen Gilbert. She injected patients with massive doses of epinephrine. She was a nurse. Fits the angel of death profile. She killed 4 people. There's Beverly Allett. She killed 4 people. She was a babysitter who injected insulin into her victims.
Oh.
Horrible. 1991.
She's still alive.
Yeah. 13 victims, but only 4 died. Crazy. She was British. So there's that.
There's a documentary, Trevor McDonald and the Killer Nurse. Alit reportedly told her close friends before her trial that she would never go to go to prison. After 1 week in prison, she refused to eat or drink and was moved to a hospital. And then some forensic experts examined her mental state and concluded she was not mentally ill and she should be in prison, not a hospital.
She's 52 now.
She's almost eligible for release 2023.
What?
But why? What?
Well, maybe we can have her on the pod.
She was given 13 life sentences with a minimum of 30 years.
Jeez.
Then there's Judius Wenwano. She was the third woman to ever be executed in the U.S. She killed 5 people. Myra Hindley. She raped and killed children.
No, Myra.
5 children. Super disgusting. Elizabeth Weiss. She was a midwife and she would kill all the illegitimate children. She killed 5 children.
God.
Then there is Catherine Burney. She also murdered with her husband. So I don't know about her.
Interesting.
Now, people have emailed us about this woman. Sachiko Ito.
Oh, right.
She was a self-proclaimed guru and cult leader, and she killed her cult members. Known as the drumstick killer. She was a Japanese cult leader.
She killed people with a chicken.
Yeah, KFC. 6 murders in Sukagawa City between 1994 and 1995. As self-professed guru who claimed to have psychic abilities, she killed several of her cult members during bizarre rituals involving taiko sticks.
What? She killed them with drumsticks. Cult leaders be crazy.
Wow. So how do you kill someone with a taiko stick? I mean, they literally are drumsticks. Do you stab them or like bonk them on the head?
I would think maybe stabbing or just like beating them.
But it's literally like a drumstick. I don't think you could beat someone to death with that. She would have to have stabbed or something.
Involved blows with heavy wooden sticks used for taiko drumming.
Well, they're blown to death. She was executed in 2012. Then there was Celine Lassange. She hid babies in her basement and she hid dead babies in her basement. 6 kills. Aileen Wuornos, we'll get into her later. Kane Kojima, 7 kills. Marianne Knoll, she killed patients, 7 of her patients. Irene Becker, she was a nurse. She killed 8 of her patients. She overdosed them. Dorothea Puente, she killed victims in her boarding house. So she owned like a boarding house and she would kill the women who lived there.
Oh, God. So she killed women.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
A lot of these people killed women, which is weird. And then these people we talked about who were cool, or we talked about them in the group chat. Seema Gavit and Renuka Shinde were a pair of killing sisters. They are 2 sisters who kidnapped and killed children. They killed 9 people.
Crazy.
Yeah, they're on death row.
Oh, currently?
Yeah. They kidnapped children and forced them into begging and petty thefts.
Dang.
This is so horrible. Their method of murder was starvation, smashing their heads against walls or electricity poles.
Oh my God.
They were in India. Rosemary West, 10 kills, dismembered bodies in her garden and cellar. Charlene Gallego kept victims as sex slaves.
Oh, wow.
Nanny Doss, we talked about, the giggling granny.
Nanny Doss.
11 kills. Gish Gottfried mixed arsenic in victims' food while caring for them. 15 kills. This woman's horrible. Irina Gaidamachuk was a social worker who targeted elderly women.
Was it to get money?
It must be. She killed 17 people. Because we know the main incentive is always money. So a lot of these people have the life insurance policies. So she was a Russian killer.
Oh.
2002 to 2010. She would kill them with an axe or a hammer, then rob the victim of whatever money she could find.
Oh.
And then she would set fire to the victim's home to cover her tracks and make it look like an accident.
Pretty smart. Pretty
crazy.
Smart.
Lavinia Fisher was the first serial killer in the U.S. Broke the glass ceiling. Yeah. Clementine Barbanet was an axe murdering voodoo priestess who killed 35 people.
Okay.
Amelia Dyer, she killed 400 infants allegedly.
What?
Yeah. And then Elizabeth Bathory, bathed in the blood of her victims, killed 650 people.
What?
Oh, yeah. We talked about her a little. The body count is like debated, The highest number of victims cited during Bathory's trial was 650, but they're not totally sure. I mean, even if you kill 100 people, that's still crazy.
Yeah, it's still pretty bad. Yeah, but I think a lot of these are also probably like up for debate.
Yeah.
So those are some of the most, and I skipped over them, but those are some of the most famous female serial killers with the highest kill count. And as you can see, female serial killers can actually kill a lot more people than men can before they get caught because they're doing it in such a different way and a lot more privately.
So let's take a quick break and then we can talk to our guest.
Web Crawlers has a Patreon to get access to rewards, bonus episodes, shout outs, discounts, ad-free episodes, and video episodes. Please go to patreon.com/webcrawlers. You can donate as little as $2 a month or just do a flat fee for the year. So you could just do $30 for the year and you're done. Also, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. If you give us a 5-star review, we will read it on an episode. Also, please call our hotline. 626-604-6262. It's the best thing that's ever happened to any of us. And what a community through those voicemails. Sometimes you guys don't even call for us. You just call for each other.
Yeah,
and that's really great.
That's fine.
We love it. The incredible author, Tori Telfer, author of Lady Killers, Deadly Women Throughout History. And she wrote a great book that I have read a lot of. I'll admit, not the whole thing, because I was on vacation in Hawaii when I read it. But I thought it was a great idea.
A nice light beach read.
Yeah, seriously, a light beach read. But seriously, it has great illustrations. It goes through all these prolific female serial killers throughout history. It talks about what inspired them to kill, how female serial killers are different from male serial killers, their stereotypes and cliches of female serial killers. And it talks about it through Tori's female lens. So it's a really great book. We're lucky to have her on today. And she is going to answer some questions for us all about bitches who kill. So let's bring Tori on. There's this quote. It's FBI profiler Roy Hazelwood in 1998 declared in a homicide conference, I guess, that there are no female serial killers, which is crazy because that's obviously very much not true. What would you say is the main difference between like male serial killers and female serial killers?
What I think Roy was saying with that quote, to be fair to him, is there aren't female serial killers that act like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy. And that is pretty true. Like that, those kind of the big cliche, like when we think of serial killers, like the people, almost always men, who hunt down strangers, and maybe there's like a torture component or like some sort of horrible sexual component. That I'm pretty sure, like when Roy was talking at this conference, they were talking about that type of killer. And so that's sort of what he was saying. That being said, the quote is obviously not technically correct. Female serial killers, they use poison a lot more.
Like Nanny Doss.
Yes, like Nanny Doss, exactly. They tend to know their victims. I mean, there's exceptions to all of these things, but, you know, generally speaking, they tend to know their victims. They're more relational. They tend to get away with it for much longer because no one suspects them.
Oh, that's very true.
Right.
Yeah. And so female serial killers can have these pretty high body counts.
Damn.
Right. Not because they were like killing in a manic rage like Ted Bundy was at the end of his freedom, but because they're not caught for years and years. And so they can like keep slowly poisoning family members.
It's interesting, like, because psychologically, I mean, I don't know if this is true, but I literally only know this from watching shows like Criminal Minds. But it seems
true.
Like serial killers, or at least for male serial killers, there's always some sort of like sexual release component, or like it's sexualized. So is that not true for female serial killers, that the instinct is different?
That's a good question. I think yes, generally. There are some female serial killers who have expressed a sexual component. Like there's this one, she's not in my book, but her name's Jane Toppin. And she was sort of a classic angel of death, like the nurse who poisons her patients. And she did say that she she would crawl into bed with them and hold them.
Ooh.
I know. She was so scary. She was just I didn't put her in my book because there's already a great book about her. But she expressed having like a sexual release as they were dying. Gross.
Strange.
I know. Sorry everyone. She's the only one that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
It's definitely more common in like the list of names I just rattled off, the famous men. Like there's an obvious sexual component. And I think for women, it's either not there or it's there in a non-obvious way, maybe.
So you had mentioned that, like, you know, most women use poison and that, you know, they're killing people who are close to them. Who is it that, you know, they're mostly killing? Is it like lovers or family members, or what's kind of driving them there?
Yeah, you got it. It's like lovers, husbands, family members, sometimes children. Then you have a couple. So you have that type, like the ones who are killing people around them. And that can be for insurance money, or it can be because they like to kill, you know, because there are women who are very murderous, just like men.
Yes. No, Allie.
And then there are like killer nurses. And there are a couple examples of women who killed children. I didn't include any of these in my book because it's just, I don't know, too much of a bummer. Even though I guess all the other ones in my book are a bummer. The other ones are really uplifting, exactly. But, you know, back in the day, people would run these places called baby farms, which are kind of like, not really orphanages, but like poor parents would send their kids there and maybe like pay a little bit of money for these women to watch their children. And some of them were fine. And some of them were run by serial killers. So,
oh my God.
Whoa.
I know. I mean,
multiple ones?
there are a couple examples. Yeah. So I think what was going on there, not to go too far down this path, is that the women who ran the baby farms and ended up killing children I don't think they were necessarily like, I'm going to start a baby farm because I'm a serial killer, but it was more like, I'm getting, say, $10 a month for this kid that's in this bed. But if I kill that kid, then I can like get a new kid in that spot and get an extra $10 a month.
Oh.
Yeah. So it becomes this really dark money thing. And the parents are poor and have no voice and can't do anything about it.
And
sorry.
No,
bummer.
This is just what we're looking for. So, and they're probably not aware, like they can't visit and things like that. So they don't know that their child has passed away.
Yeah.
And they're probably getting reassurance like, oh, your kid is fine, blah, blah, blah. So they're just racking up the kids. Yeah. Oh, Jesus, that's so scary.
Yeah.
What was the most interesting thing, I guess, that you learned through doing this research about female serial killers, or I don't want to say your favorite female serial killers, but what was the most profound thing that you kind of found through doing this research?
Oh, there was this one case that I thought was really haunting in basically a village in Hungary where all the women killed together, kind of.
Whoa.
I know. I'm seeing some shocked faces. and it became like this cultural thing. So it was a village that was there were no opportunities. Like there was a lot of poverty and you weren't supposed to get divorced. So basically you ended up having a lot of women stuck in these marriages to men who had maybe come back from war, I think World War I, and, you know, were maybe like battle scarred from that and were then abusive, and you had a lot of trapped women basically.
Yeah.
And then you had this like village, like witch/midwife woman who was kind of like, you know, what you could do is soak some fly paper in water and it turns into a poison. And the knowledge, like they like shared the knowledge with each other. So it became this thing where it was like, is your husband giving you trouble? Oh, you live with your in-laws and they scream at you all day? Like, here's an idea. And it really happened. And it was like this open secret that no one talked about. And finally, some anonymous person sent a letter to a newspaper in a bigger town and was like, hello, you like, someone needs to come and stop this. And So that was,
Oh my God.
yeah. So that's something you definitely don't see every day. And that blew my mind because it was like, we think of serial killers as these real lone wolf types. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes they're not. And that was weird.
It seems more like calculated or like
Yeah.
conniving, not just to kill, just to kill. There's
Yeah.
always like some sort of reason behind it.
Right. It's not just like a pure bloodlust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's
Interesting.
also like a big difference between men and women is like men are more solitary, but women do tend to need more like, you know, relationships or, you know, people to confide in. So it makes more sense that they might have, you know, a partner or a community that they're kind of
Yeah.
resting on. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that there
Yeah.
have been really any male serial killers that like hunt in groups or murder together that I know of. I mean, I'm sure there have been, but
There have been like
not to that effect.
a couple who worked in a pair, but like not a group like what I'm talking about in this
Yeah.
village, like not a whole pack.
A
Yeah.
murdering coven.
Yeah.
What kind of like cliches around female serial killers are there? Because I'm sure that there are a lot of cliches that kind of like write them off as not as dangerous as men are.
Yeah. Well, I think one cliche, or I don't know if this is a cliche as much as just a piece of misinformation, but is that poison isn't like a really terrifying, horrible way to kill someone. Like that it's an easy way or like a not as scary way. And when I was researching, I found that it like poisoning someone is so diabolical. I mean, okay, if you don't mind about getting caught, you could just give someone a ton of arsenic in their coffee and kill them. But these women didn't want to get caught, so they would do it very slowly over a long period of time. And it is so creepy. Like it is an agonizing way to die. These women would be nursing their victims as they're killing them. So they'd be like, it's so weird that you feel more sick after that cup of tea. Like, let me give you another one.
My God.
Like in The Sixth Sense, like the daughter in The Sixth Sense, when the mom keeps giving
It's
her...
like Munchausen by proxy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I feel like people don't comprehend how creepy that is. And there's this idea that like, that's not as scary as Ted Bundy. And I'm sort of like, is it not as scary?
More scary.
It might be more
Yeah.
scary. Yeah.
It's like the slow torture of someone over like a period of time.
Exactly.
Oh,
While you're smiling and pretending that you're trying to nurse them back to health.
oh, that's
Yeah.
scary. I don't like that.
Sorry.
That's incredibly sociopathic, but also, again, like kind of speaks to the difference between men and women, where it's
Yeah.
kind of like men need this instant gratification,
Right.
and women also kind of like are more in caregiving roles, but also have, you know, the murderous tendency. That's so
It's so weird.
scary. Yeah.
When it comes to like being on trial and stuff like that, I mean, is there this bias with them? I mean, are they more likely to get off, or do people see it as even more diabolical because they're so few and far between when it comes to
the trial.
between them and guys?
That's a great question. So I don't have the hard stats, but I'll tell you what I've encountered. I think it's sort of both. Like,
Yeah.
it depends what the defense is arguing and what the prosecution is arguing. But you do see some examples of women getting off or getting a lighter sentence because they're women or because they're a mother or whatever. Maybe not so much with serial killers, but like the women who inspired Chicago, the musical, you know, like Belva and Beulah, like they both got off because the juries were all men and they were like, these pretty little ladies couldn't have done it.
Do you know, this is
Wow.
the first time I ever found out that Chicago is based on a true story.
Girlfriend. It's
Oh
real.
my
It's all true.
I had no idea.
It's
I
all
mean, I know
real.
they probably didn't sing throughout the trial, but it's so exciting for me.
They did. They sung. They're on the trial.
Yes,
The trial
it's very
is actually
exciting.
musical.
It's very exciting.
Wow.
Yeah, I did an interview on my podcast, Criminal Broads, with someone who wrote a book about one of the women on Murderesses Row. So if you want the full story, she tells it.
Oh my God. Yeah. Wait. So we usually do this at the end, but what is your podcast? Where can people find that?
Hopefully you can find it on all podcast apps. If it's not there, let me know. But it's called Criminal Broads, and it's about.
Oh, I love that.
Each episode is either on a female criminal, or sometimes I do a crime fighting broad.
Oh, sick.
So that would be like the first female detective in New York City, that kind of thing, like a badass.
Oh,
So cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to have one of my other episodes for Women's History Month is about female detectives and female people in the FBI. So I'm going to have you on again if you're interested.
Yeah. I don't know.
That'd be great if you're like, no. Okay.
No, I can talk about like one of them.
Okay, perfect. One will
Okay,
do.
cool. So Chicago. So that's an example of like the gender bias benefiting the female criminal. But you do also see like the other thing you were saying, Maria, like the extra hatred sort of for the women.
Yeah.
And I think it's like because women aren't supposed to be so evil. So you'll see them really being torn apart in the press. I mean, it's hard. It's like weird because of course, male serial killers do also get heavily critiqued in the press.
Well, like Casey Anthony.
I was just gonna say, yeah, Casey Anthony, like super, super, super hated to this day, even though technically, like, she got off.
And Amanda Knox as well.
Yeah, that's another good example.
People still hate her and think that she did.
I know. That's a really.
But then,
sad.
and to that effect, like there's this also like sexualization of male serial killers, where it's like Ted Bundy's hot, and I mean I take part in that, where it's like the Night Stalker's attractive, Richard Ramirez, and the female serial killers are like vilified for either their appearances or bad parent. For being hot. Yeah.
But like Amanda Knox, like Foxy Knoxy, like it's like becomes part of the story of like sexy college girl kills roommate, and that's what makes it into the story it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're seen by the public and, like entertainment by hugely different standards. That's an interesting point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Crazy. Are there any female serial killers around now? Where'd serial killers go? Are there any bopping around now?
Good question. There probably are. They have not been caught yet, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
We do seem to be in not a post serial killer world, but like, I've like thought about this so much. There don't seem, quote unquote, to be as many serial killers as there were in the 70s and 80s. And that's when all the big names happened, pretty much. Like everyone that comes to mind, serial killer is 70s, 80s, maybe 90s.
Because Eileen Wuornos was
90s. Yeah. There are a lot of different theories why there were so many back then, from like the explosion of like highway systems so people could get around more, to lead in the water, to
I've heard that.
To hitchhiking being a culturally acceptable thing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so now there's this, I read this great book by an academic who studies serial killers. Cool job, right? And he was saying that our big fear now is not the serial killer as a culture, it's the terrorist or the mass shooter. And so, like, who are you afraid of when you walk down the street? Like, I'm going to guess not so much like a John Wayne Gacy, Richard Ramirez. Not that they're not scary, but like, is that the top of mind fear?
No. Yeah.
It's just a random shooter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And it's probably not easy to get away with stuff anymore with DNA evidence and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And cameras everywhere.
Yeah. That's such a good point.
There are people posting on Instagram, like at the grocery store with like a gun.
Yeah.
It's like, well, he had the gun. He was gonna.
Yeah.
And the access to porn and stuff. And if you want to be sexually, stimulated, you can find whatever you want on the internet. You don't have to go finding it in diabolical ways with real people.
Yeah.
And violence too. Like there's so many violent video games that if you wanted to kind of like, virtual reality, that if you kind of wanted to act out those fantasies, there's so many ways that you can do it in a realistic way without actually, bringing it into reality. Yeah. So maybe that's another reason why.
So porn and video games have been great
They've been really actually
Honestly,
super
yeah.
beneficial for society. It's a hot take that we have. If you have like are there any last like insights that you think our listeners should know about like female serial killers or a certain female serial killer that you think people should know about, or a cliche or misunderstanding you want to dissipate?
I think everyone should know about Nanny Doss, who we mentioned earlier. Did you mention her because you've talked about her before?
We did an episode
Okay,
on
never
Nanny
mind.
Doss, like a year ago.
She was the killer granny,
Yeah,
right?
the giggling granny.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Giggling
the
granny, that was her.
Okay, you know all about Nanny. That's an important that's an important piece of knowledge.
There was a song. Wasn't there a song about her?
Was
like
there?
Nanny Doss. Oh no, that was Nellie Bly. Never mind.
Yeah, that was Nellie Bly. We've covered a lot of weirdos. Tori, if people want to read your books or listen to your podcast or find you online, where can they do so?
They can find me on Instagram, Tori__Telfer. That's my really only social media. My books are Lady Killers, and I have a new book out called Confident Women, which is on Con Women.
Oh, awesome.
Ooh.
Awesome.
Oh, sick.
It's a romp, sort of. And you can find those anywhere, Amazon, local bookstore. And then you can find me at ToriTelfer.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tori, for all this insight. This has been so fun.
Thank you for having me.
We'll have to have you on again. This has been great.
This is my pleasure. Thank you all.
Have a good rest of the day.
All right, you too. Thanks for having
Thanks,
me.
Tori.
So, to piggyback off what Tori said, I was so interested about this group of female serial killers in Hungary that she had mentioned. This sounded so crazy to me. I decided to research it. It's called the Angel Makers of Nagriev, which I'm probably mispronouncing. And they operated from 1914 to 1929 in Hungary. So they were this group of women who were living in this village, and they poisoned like 40 people, apparently. And they were led, like Tori said, by this midwife named Susanna Fazekas. And there's a documentary if you want to watch it. It's called The Angel Makers.
Ooh, yeah.
Susanna was kind of like the HBIC, like head bitch in charge of this town for all the women.
The HBIC.
The HBIC, as they put it. So she was like the wise woman, or, like the midwife or the woman, like the elder for all these women. She also would perform abortions for the women who needed them in the village, like secretly. She would constantly like be in trouble for doing this kind of stuff, but she always got off.
Oh my God, I just Googled Susanna Fazekas, and it's a doctor in Cleveland. Who has a rating
suspicious.
of 4.8 out of 5. Dermatologist.
I think it's a different Susanna. I think it's different. But
I'm sure, but it's just funny that it's a dermatologist.
Or what if they're related, or she's immortal?
She's immortal.
Well, I got a picture. Can you show me it? Because I just found a picture of Susanna in like the back in time.
The old timey Susanna is a handsome woman.
She's a handsome is the correct term. Yeah,
She's very handsome.
She's a handsome woman, as they
the
say.
Picture.
She has strong features.
That would suck to have the same name as like
a
serial
killer. Yeah. It's like, hi, my name is Ted Bundy. Can I get a reservation for 3? Okay, so this is what's interesting in Hungary at the time. A husband, like an adult old man, would choose a teenager in the village.
Ew.
They would have to get married. And like divorce was not allowed no matter how the husband acted. So like the husband could cheat, he could be an alcoholic, he could be abusive, he could do whatever. He could like rape his wife, and there was no divorce allowed. Tori touched on this, but like during World War I, all these men went off to war. And this small village, Nagriev, was a great place for holding like prisoners of war. So a lot of prisoners of war were staying or like locked up in this village. Mm-hmm. And the women ended up falling in love with these prisoners of war. So while the men were away, these women were having like affairs with the prisoners of war.
Sounds fun.
It honestly does sound fun. So when the men returned, they were finding that like many of their wives were having affairs, and it was like this whole bad situation. So Susanna was like, hey, you know what we can do? We should kill all of our husbands. And the women were like, Susanna, you cray, but why not?
Ooh, Why not?
So why not? So Susanna realized that you can make arsenic by boiling fly paper and then like just taking off the residue.
What's fly paper?
Fly paper, like what you hang out,
like fruit flies,
like what you hang up in your kitchen.
Oh, that's what it is?
I think so.
Oh, it has a extremely sticky and sometimes poisonous substance that traps flies. Oh, I didn't know it was poison. I thought it was just like sticky stuff.
They probably don't use the poison anymore. They must have used to. I can't imagine they still
Why
use
would you even
isn't
need
the fly gonna die?
Yeah, why would you even need poison on it? All you would need is just something sticky.
But they probably I feel like they used to put poison in everything.
I'm sure,
like
poison, like
in
radiation,
water,
poison was
everything. Water.
Remember that, like
paints,
when you
like it was just everywhere.
When you would figure out your shoe size, they would have these like X-ray machines that you put your foot in. Like this was back in like the 50s and 60s.
No.
And it was just full of radiation coming out of everywhere.
Oh my God.
Like put your foot
No,
in
I don't
here and it
remember
just
that.
like injected radiation into your body.
That's insane. Like
You're
it's crazy.
insane.
They're going to find out in 10 years that like things we're doing now are crazy, you know?
Yeah, fly paper historically metallic arsenic was used in fly paper.
Seems like overkill a little bit, but whatever.
Yeah.
No pun intended. But it helped these bitches because they would boil it and then use it to kill their husbands.
Genius.
And then once they killed their husbands and took their inheritance,
Oh.
yeah, or took their, you know, their leftover money or their life insurance, Susanna was like, hey, you know who we should kill now? Our parents and take their inheritance. And so then they started killing off their parents.
Oh my God.
So like, because keep in mind, all these girls are young. These girls are probably like 14 and married and 15 and married. So their parents aren't too old.
Whoa.
So they would kill their husbands and then they would kill their parents. And these women were getting like rich. Then Susanna was like, do you really like that guy you're having an affair with? Like, why don't we kill him too? So then all these people were ending up dying in this really small village. And it was just like ending up being like Lord of the Flies, just like a group of women killing everyone.
That's crazy. What's the documentary
Yeah.
called? The Angel Makers. I gotta watch that.
Angel makers. A lot of these people, they would just throw in the river after they killed them. And then they started washing up in a nearby village. And they tested the bodies and they were full of arsenic. And they were like, all these bodies are washing up full of arsenic from like, and they're clearly washing up from this village up the road. We should look into this. So they ended up looking into it, and then all these people got caught and went to jail.
Oh, it lasted 10 years.
Yeah.
1911.
They were killing for a long time.
Or 1914. Whoa, that's a long time. Holy shit.
Yeah, so crazy. And this is, like we talked about, one of those rare instances of women murdering together. So this was kind of like, I mean, this was like a gang. I don't even know if this is serial killing. This is like a gang. Maybe this is the first all-female gang. That would be interesting to kind of look into. So then a few more serial killers that are worth note. Lavinia Fisher, who we said, and this is up for dispute, is the first female serial killer, so they say. But this is questioned because we don't know if she's a legend or if she's maybe never killed anyone or if she's killed a large amount of people. But she was part of like a gang of men who lived in like a house off the highway with all these outlaws. Lavinia would invite like male travelers out to dinner and ask them questions and see whether or not they had money. And then she would give them poison drinks.
Damn.
And then once the men drank their poison drinks and went to bed, she would go up to the room and kill them. Apparently, this is the craziest part. So this is one part of the story that's might be a legend. Apparently, Lavinia would put a lever on the bed that they would sleep on. And then she would pull the lever and the bed would collapse and drop the victim in a pit full of spikes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Like a booby
That's
trap.
one alleged thing. Yeah, like a booby trap.
Whoa.
That's cool.
Yeah, then there's, I'll go through real quick. There's Jane Toppin. She was an American serial killer called Jolly Jane. She confessed to 31 murders. When she got arrested, she said that her ambition was to have killed more people, helpless people, than any other man or woman who ever lived. She was a sex worker, then went into an insane asylum. Then she was an indentured servant. And then she trained to become a nurse. And that is when she started killing people. Tori touched on her. She is the one who was sexual with her victims. So she would as a nurse, she would kill her victims with morphine, see what it did to their nervous systems. And then as they were dying, she would get into bed with them and fondle them as they died.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Women be crazy.
So gross. Then, of course, there is Aileen Wuornos, otherwise known as Charlize Theron. She was an
AKA
American
Charlize.
serial, aka Charlize. She was an American serial killer and also sex worker. She murdered 7 men by shooting them, which was the reason she's different from female serial killers, other female serial killers, is she chose a more male way to kill.
Right.
Most female serial killers do not use guns, and also she did it mostly out in the open, and she claimed it was self-defense. She claimed that these men were trying to rape or sexually assault her. However, that was not determined to be true, and she got the death penalty. We learned that at her funeral she played Natalie Merchant's Carnival, and it was her favorite
Ooh,
song in
that's
jail.
right.
She played it all the time, apparently.
Good song.
Yeah. Finally, last but not least, I just thought this was interesting. Juana Barraza. She was a Mexican serial killer and a wrestler,
Oh.
dubbed the Old Lady Killer. And she killed 49 elderly women. She bludgeoned, strangled, and robbed them
Oh
in
my God.
her wrestling costume.
What?
Are you serious?
Yeah. She actually looks like the pink Power Ranger.
Oh my God. That costume.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty crazy. She was like a famous wrestler, and then she was like would
Wow.
wrestle by day and then like kill people at night.
That's crazy. She's still alive.
Yeah. So anyways, that's a quick like dummy's guide to female serial
There's
killers.
so many.
Yeah, so many. We will get into more detail about some of them maybe in Patreon episodes or in subsequent episodes.
Yeah.
But for Women's History Month, I just wanted to educate you about, how female serial killers, they exist, they out there, and they are different from their male counterparts. If you have a favorite female serial killer or know any crazy stories,
Lizzie Borden.
another very famous.
Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41.
Wow.
So crazy. Yeah, the original Menendez. Have I told my serial killer story?
The hula hoop teacher?
Looks like I have.
Well, tell it again. Maybe people don't. Yeah,
tell it in, because that was a while ago you
Yeah.
talked about that.
Well, you have a serial killer story too, don't you, Melissa?
Not a serial killer, but a killer.
When I was younger, there was like a paint crew painting my house. I must have been like 9 years old or something. And this guy would always stay late, like with me and my mom. And he would like teach me how to hula hoop, and he would like work long hours and like ask my mom if she needed help with the dishes and stuff like that. And was like super, super nice. But my dad would always work late, so my dad was never home. My mom and I didn't really think anything of it except for that it was weird that he would always stay later than the other guys. But my grandma was always like, that guy is weird. I have a bad feeling about him. Anyways, all of a sudden he stopped showing up for the job. And my mom said, where's so-and-so? And the owner of the company was like, I don't know. He just disappeared. We're not sure. Then a year later or so, we're watching the TV, and it turns out that he was a serial killer who killed sex workers. And because I guess his like mom was a sex worker, and he had all this animosity. And so then he went on a rampage and was killing sex workers in Los Angeles and like all these other places, and was on the move from like one place to another, and
Crazy.
would take like temporary jobs and do his dirty work and then go from one place to another.
What was his name?
I don't know. I
You
don't
gotta find
remember.
out who.
And I asked my mom, and
Yeah.
I know. And I asked my mom, and she didn't know either. She said he was like a redhead, like a white redheaded tall dude.
What year would have this been around? Like, how old were you?
The 90s, like 94 probably. We have to look into it more.
Yeah, we probably figure it out.
Anyways, yeah. And so I think he was like nice to me and my mom because he thought it was like a nice family environment or whatever. I don't know.
Right.
But I mean, maybe he would have killed me and my mom. I don't know. So that's my story. Please email us if you have anything interesting to add. I am Allie, the female of the species seagull.
I am Melissa, Angel of Death, Stettin.
Sick.
And I'm Maria, soap making Blasucci.
Uh-oh, don't buy your soap.
Don't buy my
Don't
soap.
buy Maria's soaps. Bye.
An Erios original.
Powered by Acast.